Hello everyone, we're Normality Not Assumed, and here's our analysis of extracurriculars in North Carolina. So we first looked at just raw spending on youth development organizations, using these two cities, Asheville and Wilmington, as our case study. However, as you can see here, although Asheville spends way more per organization and has a similar number of organizations as Wilmington, you can see that student success is very similar to Wilmington. So clearly the amount of money doesn't help. So what's next? Well, we looked at the schools that really are performing well. As you can see on the graph on the right, these early college high schools perform much better than other schools in the country. Why? We investigated. We determined that early college high schools, among other things, have a strong emphasis on actually getting students access to extracurricular opportunities. They're not necessarily the most expensive extracurricular opportunities, but they are accessible. So, with that in mind, we went on to create an access index to measure exactly how accessible extracurriculars really are in the country.
So, we asked what kind of index would help policymakers improve access. And so we considered access to cars that people have, the distance from activities, and the walkability of certain areas. So we went on to create our access index, starting off with a distance index, in which we calculate the distance to every extracurricular from a school.
So we ultimately decided on the formula of 50% of how far or how close a school is to a given activity, and then 25% the walkability of the area that the school is inside of, and then 25% of the access of cars that the people who live in that area have. Now, we moved on to plot the accessibility index in response to the number of unhealthy mental health days that people took. And we see that there's a downward trend, which means that as the access to these extracurriculars rises, the number of unhealthy mental health days that people have to take decreases. So access spurs mental health. A few things that we'd like to work on in the future are to account for the driving or walking time between activities instead of distance as the crow flies. We'd also like to account for the various costs of activities as those can impact access instead of just geographical factors. And additionally, we'd like to take a survey to weigh factors in our formula to determine what actually matters to impacting people's access to these activities.
So using our index, we made a dashboard. So it shows overall performance of schools per county based off of our index. Note that it's by school, so we took the county average. The green counties are performing well, while the red counties are performing poorly. On the right, we inserted a scatter plot to observe trends, and as you can see, the trend that we noticed among mental health still exists at the county level.
So, with that in mind, we have some recommendations for policymakers in North Carolina. For one thing, we want an increase in infrastructure. So we recommend that the government of North Carolina to increase the quality of infrastructure to increase access, and that includes more sidewalks in rural areas, vehicle subsidies, and better public transportation. We also, in response to our findings in the early colleges, is that we learned that it's not about funding extracurriculars or even funding our schools, it's about making sure that our students are funded. In order to do this, we want to increase financial security for our students by a variety of policies. When students have financial security, it's easier for them to participate in extracurriculars instead of worrying about financial risks that they may have. For all these reasons, we think that these are the policies you should take. Thanks for hearing us out. We hope you enjoyed.